Please help. Mom won't move.
My 8-year-old granddaughter suddenly visited our house. She said he walked for an hour to get here. She was staggering with a high fever of 40 degrees, and seemed like she could collapse at any moment. Despite her condition, my granddaughter kept worrying about her mother. I sensed that something was seriously wrong, so I hurried to my daughter's house. There, I found my daughter lying motionless, covered in bruises and not breathing. What on earth is going on? Could it be? I understood everything in that moment, trembling with anger. I decided to seek revenge. I'm Samantha, 62 years old. As a single mother, one of my goals was to raise my daughter Holly to be respectable. Despite not being wealthy, I took pride in the fact that Holly grew up to be honest and straightforward. We have a close mother-daughter relationship where we can talk about anything without hiding secrets. After a lifetime of walking hand in hand, one day a big change came into our lives.
Mom, there's someone I want to marry. Can I bring him over sometime?
It was the day after her 28th birthday. I had a faint inkling that she was seeing someone, but it seemed that on her birthday, he proposed to her. For me, who had lived together with Holly, enduring everything, this was a slightly bittersweet moment. A few weeks after my daughter confided in me, a well-dressed man arrived at our home.
This is Ben, the man I'm currently seeing.
Nice to meet you.
Upon our first meeting, he seemed like a fine young man. His mannerisms were gentle, and his eyes were very kind when he looked at my daughter. He mentioned that his parents owned a company, and he was working there to learn about business in order to take over in the future. Please take care of Holly.
Thank you. I'll make Holly the happiest person in the world.
Well, that's reassuring. I felt confident in my daughter's choice, so I decided to approve of their marriage. After getting married, the two of them started their new life just a 10-minute drive away from my house. Holly, at Ben's strong insistence, quit her job and became a full-time housewife. My daughter often checked up on me, contacting me frequently and visiting when our schedules aligned.
Mom, guess what? It seems like I'm pregnant.
Oh, that's wonderful. About 2 months after their wedding, she visited my house and joyfully shared the news. Seeing her express her happiness like a child made me equally delighted. I'm finally going to be a grandma, I thought eagerly, awaiting the birth of my first grandchild. During the pregnancy, there were no major issues, and my daughter gave birth to a healthy baby girl. They named her Rose. People often say that grandchildren are so adorable that you could watch them endlessly without getting tired. Rose was truly adorable, and every time I saw her, my eyes couldn't help but soften with affection. However, something seemed off with Holly after giving birth, as she appeared to lack energy. Perhaps she was quite tired from her first experience with childcare. On my days off, I'll take care of Rose, so feel free to bring her over. That way, you can relax a bit, too, right?
Yeah, thank you.
It seemed like my daughter felt reassured by my words, as she occasionally came over to spend leisurely time at our house. Are you getting more used to childcare?
Quite a bit. But there's still a lot I don't understand, and it's tough.
I see. Does Ben help out with childcare and household chores?
He gets home late from work. He doesn't do housework, but he manages the finances. So, it's tough because I don't have much money to spend freely.
This was the first time Holly had complained about her husband and household matters. I understood that it was natural for them to find living together challenging, given their different upbringing backgrounds, and I thought it was inevitable for grievances to spill out. Do you remember your father's habit of overspending and constantly being in debt? That's one of the reasons for our divorce.
Yeah, it was really tough for you back then.
That's why I think it's better to be with someone like Ben, who tries to manage things on his own and is strict with money. Of course, you might feel restricted at times.
Yeah, you're right.
It seemed like my daughter agreed, as she didn't bring up the topic further. As time passed, and Rose grew older, Holly's visits to my home gradually decreased. Eventually, we only saw each other around New Year's holidays. Although I felt a sense of loneliness, I believed that she had grown accustomed to parenting and was managing her own life well. However, recently, I found it difficult to reach her on the phone, and receiving a prompt reply to messages became rare. Even when she did respond to me a few days later, she would only write, "I'm fine, don't worry." This was unlike her, and I couldn't shake off the feeling that my daughter might be hiding something from me. I wonder if something happened. It's okay if she's just busy. Unable to stay still with worry for my daughter and grandchild, I decided to visit them without notifying them first. When Holly came out after I rang the intercom, she looked surprised to see me.
Mom, what's going on? Why did you come over so suddenly?
I was worried because it's been hard to get in touch with you.
But I've been sending you message saying I'm fine, right? Anyway, Ben is here today, so I'd like you to leave.
It was the first time she had ever said something like this, even though Ben had always welcomed me into their home before. It seemed a bit strange to me.
Holly, why don't you let her in?
Perhaps he overheard our conversation, as my son-in-law peeked out from behind my daughter.
Grandma,
Samantha, it's been a while. Have you been well? I've been quite busy lately, so I haven't had much time to see you.
Ben, I'm sorry for showing up unexpectedly on your day off. I've been worried lately because Holly hasn't been keeping in touch.
Don't worry about it. It's been a while since you've seen Rose, so please stay as long as you like.
In his usual gentle manner, he welcomed my visit. I was delighted to reunite with my 8-year-old grandson and listened eagerly to catch up on recent events.
Hey! Is the tea ready yet?
My son-in-law went into the kitchen where Holly was preparing tea, and suddenly his tone turned cold.
I'm boiling water as fast as I can right now.
You're really clumsy.
Perhaps he thought I couldn't hear, but his attitude toward my daughter grew increasingly harsh. I wonder if their marriage is going well. I approached the kitchen as I wanted to have a conversation with my daughter alone, but they still hadn't noticed me.
This is why I hate people raised by single parents.
Upon hearing Ben's words, I couldn't believe my ears and I froze. I glanced over and saw Holly looking very sad. Seeing her like that, my heart felt heavy.
Oh, Samantha. What's wrong? I'll bring you some tea right away, so please, have a seat.
As he turned around and noticed my presence, my son-in-law reverted to his usual gentle demeanor. This man, constantly changing his attitude. I can't trust him. I considered taking my daughter home with me as I sensed that my daughter was feeling uncomfortable, and when Ben stepped away from the table, I took the opportunity to speak to Holly. If you're going through a hard time, you can bring Rose and come back to our place.
Mom, I'm sorry for worrying you. But there's really nothing wrong.
She forced a smile, trying not to concern me. Her forced smile seemed painfully unnatural, and my worries grew. Despite repeatedly urging her to come home with me, she adamantly refused. Leaving my daughter's house with a heavy heart, I realized I needed to pay even closer attention to Holly from now on. It was a few weeks after that day. My 8-year-old granddaughter, Rose, suddenly visited my house. She had walked for an hour and seemed on the verge of collapsing. As I held her in my arms, I was shocked by her fever. I quickly brought her inside and measured her temperature, only to find it was a staggering 40 degrees Celsius. What happened? What's wrong?
Mom needs help. She won't move. Please help Mom first, before me.
Despite her high fever, Rose was deeply concerned about her mother. I knew this was serious. I hurriedly placed my granddaughter in the passenger seat and rushed to my daughter's house. The door was left unlocked, so I called my daughter's name as I entered the room. And there, in the living room, I found Holly lying down. My heart pounded with shock as I discovered her. Holly. Holly. Are you okay? There was no response to my calls, and she appeared to be not breathing. I noticed bruises all over her body and began to piece together what had happened. This must be. I immediately called for an ambulance, and Holly and Rose were taken to the hospital. The attending doctor informed me that both of them were in serious condition and would need to stay in the hospital for a while. Moreover, the doctor told me,
"Your daughter may be in danger, so please be prepared."
No. Holly, hang in there. You'll be okay. I was shocked and my mind went blank, but I prayed, believing in my daughter's resilience and hoping for her recovery. Sitting on a cold chair in the hallway, I tried to calm my trembling heart as anxiety washed over me. After that, the doctors worked diligently to treat them, and Holly miraculously regained consciousness the next day. I'm so relieved. I'm truly relieved.
Mom. How's Rose?
She's also hospitalized, sleeping in another room now.
I see. That's a relief. Mom, you see.
Seeing Holly, who seemed like she wanted to say something, I smiled gently and nodded encouragingly. Perhaps feeling reassured, she started crying. She must have gone through some very difficult days. I held my daughter tightly as she cried, like a child, tears streaming down her face. Afterward, when she had calmed down a bit, my daughter told me something unbelievable. What the? I can't just let this go. When my daughter collapsed, I had a suspicion, but I never imagined it would be this serious. Learning about the suffering my daughter had endured filled me with anger, and I resolved in my heart that I would seek justice. 2 days after my daughters were admitted to the hospital, I pretended not to know anything and pressed the intercom at my daughter's house.
Oh, Samantha. What brings you here today?
Just had a little something to discuss with Holly. Is she around?
Oh, I got a call from her saying she went to a friend's house with Rose. They're not home right now.
He casually lied. What's more, despite my daughter and Rose not being there, he was even humming. Oh, I see. They just called a little while ago. What should I do now? But I can't just go back like this. I told Ben that my daughter had asked me to sell a large teddy bear at the bazaar. Without any suspicion, he let me into the house. This is it. I'll take it with me then. As soon as I entered the living room, I quickly packed the teddy bear into a large bag I brought. Then, I quickly left their house and headed straight to a certain place. A few days later on Sunday, I called Ben. I have something I want to discuss with you privately, without telling Holly. Could you come over to my place?
What is it? Can't we talk over the phone?
I know you're busy, but I'd prefer to talk in person if possible.
I see. Alright, I'll come over later.
About an hour later, my son-in-law arrived with a smile. I apologize for summoning you so suddenly. Holly hasn't found out about you coming here, has she?
Oh, it's fine. Right now, Rose and she are happily making sweets together.
That couldn't be true. My daughter and granddaughter are still undergoing treatment at the hospital. This man might be weaving lies effortlessly. I'm utterly dismayed by Ben's endless stream of lies.
So, what's the matter you wanted to discuss?
Actually, it's about this. I showed him a certain photo. He furrowed his brows, looking uneasy, then quickly averted his gaze. Do you know what this is?
What's this?
You don't recognize it? It's your wife, isn't it? The photo was evidence of the bruises on my daughter's body taken on the day she was taken to the hospital. And the fact that Holly and Rose are at home is also a lie, isn't it? Because they've been in the hospital for the past few days.
In the hospital.
Ben just repeats my words. What is he thinking? You didn't even bother to look for Holly and Rose when they weren't home, did you? My anger towards my son-in-law for not answering my questions is about to burst. Last week, Rose walked over to our house, feeling dizzy with a fever of 40 degrees. Then I told him that my granddaughter had kept pleading, "Help Mom," so I hurried to their house, only to find Holly barely breathing. I had to rush both of them to the hospital, but they were in critical condition.
I thought they were staying over at a friend's house.
I didn't give him a chance to come up with excuses and decided to press on. The doctor said this bruise was caused by strong external force, something that happens regularly. Do you know anything about it?
Huh. Oh. Come to think of it, she mentioned something about slipping on the stairs and falling.
Seeing my son-in-law lie so casually once again, my blood boiled with anger. Stop lying. You've been raising your hand to Holly every day, haven't you?
Huh. There's no evidence of that, so don't say such things.
I heard it directly from my daughter with my own ears.
And is that evidence? Are you just going to believe everything Holly says and make me out to be the bad guy? What's your motive? Money?
Ben showed no remorse whatsoever and came up with outrageous claims. You can say that for now. But I have solid evidence right here. I glared at my son-in-law, pointing at the laptop on the table. Can you still say that after seeing this? I clicked the mouse and played a video.
What is this? No way.
He was clearly shaken, his face growing paler by the second. The video clearly showed my son-in-law raising his hand to Holly. Actually, after my daughter regained consciousness, she told me about the evidence.
Why does something like this exist?
Holly, feeling her life was in danger, secretly installed a camera to capture your actions without being noticed. With the intention of using it as evidence to punish this man, I had been trying to find a way to retrieve that camera. My daughter told me that she had hidden a small camera inside the teddy bear in the living room, ensuring it wouldn't be found by Ben. So, the night after my daughter and granddaughter were hospitalized, I visited his place pretending not to know anything, and lied that I was taking the teddy bear to sell it at a bazaar. He probably never expected to be caught in his own trap with that teddy bear.
What is this thing? I'm going to break it.
Ben's demeanor changed drastically, and he slammed the laptop onto the floor. Not only that, but he turned red with rage and stomped on the laptop with all his might. Doing something like this won't change anything.
Shut up. Shut your mouth.
My son-in-law snapped at me, glaring fiercely, and then he attempted to raise his hand against me.
Ben, what are you doing?
The door of the room swung open loudly, and Ben, turning his gaze in that direction, widened his eyes in surprise.
Huh? Dad.
Yes, the one who appeared was Ben's father, Henry. After retrieving the video camera from my daughter's house, I went straight to Ben's parents' house. I showed them the footage, revealing what Ben had been doing to my daughter, and he offered deep apologies. Henry immediately tried to call Ben out, but I asked him to keep this matter quiet until I could confirm if Ben genuinely felt remorseful. However, Ben's father insisted on apologizing to my daughter no matter what, so he accompanied me to the hospital and offered a sincere apology to Holly. Hearing the whole story, Ben was left frozen with his hand raised, unsure of what to do next. Moreover, cold sweat began to trickle down his forehead.
Hey, put your hand down.
Okay.
Prompted by his father, Ben suddenly became quiet and obedient.
What's going on here?
Well, you see.
Raising your hand to that extent. This isn't something that can be resolved with just an apology.
Dad, it's not what you think. It's all set up. They're trying to frame me.
Ben delivers lines one might only hear in a TV drama, dead serious, to his father. There's no setup here. This is the truth.
You can fabricate footage like this if you want. This is definitely fake.
My son-in-law inches closer to me, trying to corner me. Does he still think he can explain away?
Enough with the excuses. I don't want to hear any more of that.
Henry's loud voice makes Ben flinch reflexively.
Dad, please understand. It's all Holly's fault.
Though he flinched for a moment, there's no sign of remorse in him. You raised your hand to Holly while she was unwell in bed, right? And you locked Rose, who tried to stop you, in the outdoor shed.
But Holly is a housewife, isn't she? Don't you think it's unacceptable for her to lie in bed and not do any housework?
That's not all, is it? You took my daughter, who looked like she was about to collapse at any moment, to the bathroom, showered her with water, and then left her out on the balcony. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I recounted Holly's situation that day. I mustn't cry. Holly and Rose must have had it much worse. Reminding myself of this, I took a deep breath and locked eyes with Ben.
But I brought her back inside before I left the house, so it's fine, isn't it?
Why would you do something so terrible? You used to be much kinder and took care of Holly, didn't you?
It's all her fault. Ever since Rose was born, she started slacking off on household chores and taking care of me.
I couldn't help but feel astonished at my son-in-law's selfish reasons, and I was left speechless. And he still seemed like he had something else to say, smiling smugly. You promised to make my daughter the happiest woman in the world before you got married, didn't you?
Did I say something like that? Having them around just costs me money. People who are being supported financially have no rights, you know.
Ben casually uttered something outrageous which was hard to believe. Unbelievable. This is too much.
But isn't it a waste to spend the money I worked hard to earn on them, who contribute nothing productive?
You're the one who told Holly to quit her job. And it's only natural to support your own child.
Ha! You still don't get it, do you? Housewives need to do their job properly to deserve compensation, you know.
Moreover, Ben showed no remorse for relieving work stress by raising his hand to Holly, speaking nonchalantly. I thought it was pointless to say anything more to this man.
Perhaps this awful behavior is because of how my wife and I raised him. I'm truly sorry.
Ben's father bowed solemnly, but I wonder how my son-in-law felt about that.
You don't need to apologize, Dad. I haven't done anything wrong.
You idiot. You're wrong. As a father, I'll say it first. You're disowned. And as the president of the company, let me tell you, someone like you is fired.
Ha! Disowned? Fired? That's impossible. It's impossible. If that happens, how am I supposed to live? Dad, please forgive me.
Ben became frantic and pleaded with his father.
Reflect on what you've done. Never associate with us again.
Henry pushed his son away and turned his back.
Wait. Please say something, Samantha. If I'm left like this, I'll be jobless. It'll trouble Holly and Rose, won't it?
I don't think so. I handed Ben the divorce papers I had received from my daughter. After doing such terrible things, did you really think you could continue your married life?
If I get divorced, I'll be alone.
Well, that's odd. You seemed to be enjoying being alone after Holly and Rose were gone, didn't you? Yes, actually, there was more to the footage from this camera. I inserted the copied SD card into my phone and began playback. After I had taken my daughter and grandchild to the hospital, when Ben returned home and realized they were nowhere to be found, he wasn't searching for them. Instead, he was smirking, saying, "If things go well, I'll get the life insurance money." Even when I went to retrieve the teddy bear with the camera inside, he was unaware of my arrival and was humming a tune. Seeing that footage, my son-in-law's eyes welled up, and he nervously tried to take the phone from me. However, his father intervened and prevented him from doing so. Holly and Rose's case seems to have been reported to the police from the hospital, so I imagine the detectives will be your conversation partners for a while.
Police?
As we file the report, we'll also hand over the recorded footage to the police, so be prepared.
Wait a minute, Samantha. Please wait.
He must really be worried about involving the police. With sweat dripping down his face, he pleaded with me.
Please, don't do that. I'll apologize for everything, just please forgive me. Please ask Holly too, please.
Holly isn't your puppet. Stop manipulating her with your convenient excuses. As I harshly pushed him away, Ben became stunned and stood there, speechless. His father then dragged him outside, saying,
I'll make sure he doesn't run away until we hand him over to the police.
Before leaving. In the following days, my daughter filed a police report and submitted the incriminating footage as evidence. As a result, my son-in-law was arrested. While the exact verdict remains uncertain, it's anticipated that he'll spend some time behind bars. He's been disowned by his parents as promised and has also been terminated from his job. The divorce between my daughter and her husband was finalized successfully. We were able to claim a lump sum of $150,000 from Ben for the mental anguish, medical expenses, and child support for Holly and Rose. After recovering and being discharged from the hospital, my daughter and granddaughter moved into my house. The sound of their laughter echoing through the house is pure happiness for me. As a mother and grandmother, I want to do everything I can to ensure that they continue to smile in the future.
Ah, she's so cute. She's my little sister.
When the family went to celebrate my older sister's baby, my 6-year-old daughter was overjoyed. The word sister made my husband widen his eyes for a moment, but he quickly chuckled and corrected her.
Not a sister, she's a cousin.
He seemed to think that our daughter had made a mistake due to her young age. However, the older sister remained frozen without even a smile at our daughter's words. Then came the next statement, hitting like a blow.
Huh? Because she's your child, Dad. She's my sister, right?
At that moment, I felt frozen. Because my daughter possessed a strange power. Children grow up so quickly. My daughter Kate had also turned 6 in the blink of an eye, at the adorable age. She had been begging, "I want a little brother or sister," but that was a difficult situation. You see, since Kate was born, my relationship with my husband Brian had been strained. Brian would hurl insults like ugly and fat at me whenever he saw me. Admittedly, I had been busy with work, house chores, and child rearing every day, and I hadn't paid much attention to my appearance. Perhaps, it wasn't fulfilling enough for him as a wife. So, I made every effort to take care of my makeup and clothing.
You know, even if an ugly woman like you put on makeup, it just makes the ugly worse. It makes me sick.
What? Even though I made efforts, all I got from him were cruel words. Moreover, he would come home late every day without letting me know, sometimes returning in the early morning hours, doing as he pleased. Furthermore, if he didn't like the food I cooked, he would flip over the entire table, saying, "I can't eat such disgusting stuff." Of course, I had to clean up the broken dishes and scattered food. It was like a drama from the 1950s. I couldn't believe there were still people like that nowadays. Kate gradually became afraid of Brian's actions.
Hey, Mom, Dad doesn't want Mommy or Kate.
She whispered to me, tears streaming down her face. It seemed like my daughter could sense something from his actions. Since I thought my husband seemed to dislike everything about me, I also began to lose affection for him. Maybe, he's just under a lot of stress from work now and he'll return to being the kind Brian someday. The word divorce did cross my mind, but I still held on to a faint hope for my husband. Suddenly, I wondered if I wouldn't receive such treatment if I looked as beautiful as my sister Emily, who was 3 years older. Emily was stunningly beautiful, and although my parents adored both of us equally, the public's eyes were cold. They would casually compare me to Emily, saying things like, "Oh, your sister is so beautiful." I didn't care about other people's opinions. At least, if my sister were kind. Emily had been cruel to me since we were young. She would purposely break toys that our parents bought for me and then tell them,
"Even though you gave it to her as a present, I saw Kathy breaking it apart."
She would frequently say things like,
"Even if you're smart, with that appearance, it doesn't matter. Thank goodness I wasn't born with a face like yours."
and hurt me. That wasn't all. She tore up the diary our parents had given me for my birthday, which I treasured, and she would feed my friends false information to drive a wedge between us, causing many misunderstandings. I came to despise my sister. However, amidst all this, something joyful happened to me. Emily, who had become a nurse, was quickly courted by a doctor named Mike after starting work at the hospital and got married, moving out of the house. I was truly overjoyed. Now I won't have to face my older sister anymore. I won't be subjected to her harassment, I thought. However, my sister would go on to trouble me even further, but at that moment, I was simply reveling in the sense of relief. Fortunately, it seemed Emily was enjoying the life of a doctor's wife to the fullest, and she rarely visited our parents' house. Even when she did come back occasionally, I managed to keep my composure by avoiding her. After that, I graduated from a top university using my academic skills and landed a job at a renowned company, where I met Brian, who was an employee at one of our business partners. And, for years after my sister's marriage, I married him. It was on our wedding day that I met Emily again after a long time. Looking at Brian, my sister bit her lip, looking bitter.
Why can an ugly woman like Kathy marry a handsome elite?
That's such a cruel thing to say. I was at a loss for words, but I was also disappointed by Brian's reaction.
Oh damn. Kathy's sister is really beautiful. I made a mistake with my marriage partner.
Huh?
Oops, sorry. That slipped out. I mean, it's not about looks. I love Kathy.
Despite feeling uneasy about my husband's words, I managed to suppress my anger. There are things you shouldn't say even though we're going to be together from now on. With such feelings, I somehow managed to get through the wedding, and our married life began. Shortly thereafter, I became pregnant, and 10 months later, our daughter Kate was born. While I truly loved my child, there were times when I thought she was a bit unusual. It was when Kate turned 3. My daughter Kate is cute. I was thinking that while looking at Kate.
Kate is cute.
Huh? How did you know what Mommy was feeling?
Mommy said it.
I couldn't hide my surprise at my daughter's words. Then, when I had a headache, even though I hadn't said anything.
Mommy, pain, go away.
She said. She didn't seem to understand herself, but it seemed that Kate could hear the thoughts of others. And I wasn't the only one who noticed. When Kate was 4 years old, there was a time when my husband said he wanted to take a day off work because of a stomach ache.
Daddy, you got scolded by the president, didn't you? Poor thing.
My husband, who was shocked and wide-eyed upon hearing those words, started berating Kate.
How did you know that? Creepy kid.
I later found out that he had failed at work and caused damage to the company, receiving a direct reprimand from the president. Kate had spoken the truth, but it resulted in her being verbally abused by Brian. It seems that having strange powers can sometimes attract resentment from people. Even so, to see him get angry and deny his daughter's truthfulness. It was the moment when my trust in my husband was further shattered. Let's keep hearing each other's thoughts as a secret between Mommy and Kate.
Okay, got it.
I made such a promise with my daughter, but because of that, it seemed Brian came to believe that Kate no longer had any strange powers. However, I had only told my parents about my daughter's abilities. When I told them about Kate's powers and asked them to be understanding if something happened to me, my parents agreed to keep it a secret out of their love for their grandchild. After that, nothing changed, and Kate, who grew up healthy and lively, turned 6. It was around that time that we had a reason to gather at my sister's house. Emily, who got married early but was struggling to get pregnant, finally had a long-awaited child, and we gathered with both sets of parents for a celebration. Honestly, I wasn't excited about it, but since it was my real sister's baby shower, I had no choice. My husband and I also attended with our daughter.
Wow, so cute. She's my sister.
Kate, who had been wanting a younger sibling, was overjoyed to see the baby. However, it seemed she had misunderstood something.
Hey, Tate. No, she's not your sister. She's your cousin.
My husband hastily corrected her, but Kate was looking at him curiously.
Huh? But she's your child, Dad, so she's my sister, right?
No, I'm saying she's not. She's your cousin.
As my husband exchanged these words with Kate, I noticed something strange about my sister's demeanor. She had been glaring at Kate with pursed lips, but now she was looking at me with sharp eyes. Her eyes were bloodshot, her mouth twisted into an ugly grimace, giving her a demonic appearance.
Does your child have delusions? You're ruining the celebration even though it's supposed to be a happy occasion. How dare you?
Why are you getting so worked up? Is there something you're hiding? I know my sister's personality better than anyone. Emily always lied to trap me, but whenever her lies were about to be exposed, she would erupt in rage like a wildfire.
Ugh. Are you kidding me?
Just as she was about to attack me, her husband, Mike, intervened and stopped her. My daughter, frightened, pointed at Brian while hiding behind me.
But Dad said my baby is cute.
Ha! I didn't say anything like that.
My husband denied it, but sweat was pouring from his forehead despite the lack of heat. My parents' expressions changed upon Kate's words, and her in-laws felt the awkward atmosphere. That's when I realized everything. I see. So that's how it is. However, causing a scene here might just dismiss my daughter's childish ramblings. I decided to investigate my husband and Emily. My parents, who felt the same way, looked stern, but they seemed to understand for Kate's sake and didn't say anything. And so, we left my sister's house soon after leaving behind a gift, but on the way home, my parents told me something I didn't know. Later, I received a call from someone else, which surprised me. Although there was a commotion at the baby shower, afterward, there were no more calls from my sister, and time passed peacefully. Brian didn't mention anything about that day, and of course, neither did I. And I noticed that my husband seems to have reduced the number of abusive words he throws at me a little. I guess he's waiting for things to cool down. But it's not going to be that easy. Then, one day while contemplating these matters, I received a call from my parents. Apparently, Emily had called them to inform them about a naming ceremony they were planning. I wasn't invited, but I decided to attend anyway. However, not wanting to frighten Kate, I left her with a close friend and then contacted my husband. When my husband heard my words over the phone, he shouted,
It's a misunderstanding. Stop it! I'll be right there.
But I ignored him and hung up. Now Brian should come too. When I arrived at my sister's house, her in-laws and my parents were already there, and I took a deep breath before ringing the doorbell.
I didn't call for you. What are you doing here?
My sister glared at me with eyes filled with rage and tried to push me out forcibly, but I resisted, and we ended up in a scuffle at the entrance. Then her husband came over and tried to calm her down, allowing me to enter. The baby looked even cuter with her round features, and her light brown curls and faint blue eyes were just like Brian's. So it's true. How unfortunate. This child is innocent. As I thought that while looking at the living room decorations, my husband burst into the room as if rushing in.
It's not true! This child isn't mine!
With his loud declaration, everyone froze in shock. The first to speak up amidst the silence was Emily. Emily, what are you talking about? Stop it.
What are you talking about? Stop it!
But Kathy said she would expose them.
Yes. Before coming here, I had called my husband and told him. I'll tell everyone that my sister's child is yours. Stop me if you can. That's why Brian had rushed here in a panic. My sisters-in-laws were perplexed as they listened to their conversation. At that moment, Mike coldly informed them, I know everything, and spread something out on the table. It was the result of a private investigator's investigation. It reported the affair between my husband and Emily, complete with several photos. There were even pictures of the two of them entering a hotel arm in arm, so there was no doubt they were having an affair.
Where did you get these?
It's no wonder my sister was shocked. After the baby shower, I had been contacted by my sister's husband. He had become suspicious because the baby didn't resemble him at all, and he had overheard Emily making affectionate phone calls to someone, so he had hired an investigator. Brian, who wanted to save himself, began to make excuses while looking at my parents.
Emily was the one who approached me. If such a beautiful woman seduces you, anyone would be tempted, right? I just played around a little. It was a moment of weakness.
Do you really want to escape that badly? You'll have to repay the loan from my parents right away.
Huh. How did you know?
In fact, my husband had been embezzling money from the company and using it for gambling, leading to his dismissal and a demand for compensation from the company. Despite that, he had lied and secretly borrowed money from my parents, claiming he had become a guarantor for a friend. Thinking that he might be pressured to repay the debt if his affair with my sister was exposed, he panicked. Here, I distributed printed evidence to everyone. It was the email exchange between Brian and Emily that was left on Brian's computer. The password was easy, seemingly typical of him, visible when he opened his computer. 7,777. Lucky 7. The emails contained sweet phrases like, "Last night was fun, I want to see you again, I want to be together forever, the child looks just like you," and so on.
When did? Kathy, are you trying to set me up?
Who knows? Nevertheless, my husband continued to awkwardly argue.
But there's no evidence that the child is mine.
That's right. This child is Mike's.
Despite Emily's assertiveness, my sister's husband and I exchanged glances and presented the results of 2 DNA tests. One showed a 0% probability of paternity between the baby and Mike. And this one shows a 99% probability of paternity. Yours. My sister's husband and I had cooperated to arrange for DNA testing of the baby's hair and each potential father. There was no more room for denial. Then, my sister covered her face with her hands and began crying dramatically.
But I desperately wanted a child to protect this lifestyle. I thought I could have a child with Brian. It can't be helped, right? It's unfair that only Kathy has a child.
Don't be ridiculous. Did you cheat on me to have a child? I was set up. Kathy, understand me.
Get away! Disgusting! As my husband tried to hug me, I pushed him away with all my might. When Mike and I announced our divorce, they cried and protested, but the eyes of all our relatives who looked at them were terrifyingly cold. Afterwards, Emily was divorced and kicked out of the house, facing a $20,000 alimony claim for her affair. Custody of the child went to my sister's husband, who had no biological connection, and she was also ordered to pay $500 in child support each month. Emily was even disowned by our parents and had to work night shifts to pay alimony and child support. Of course, I divorced my husband too. Brian borrowed money from loan sharks to pay $20,000 in alimony to both me and Mike. Additionally, he had to repay the $30,000 loan from my parents and pay for our daughter's upbringing. Now he lives in an old apartment, working on a daily contract job all day. Meanwhile, Kate and I returned to our parents' home and are enjoying peaceful days.
Grandpa and Grandma adore Kate so much.
That's what my daughter says, but it seems to be just a phrase from our parents, so she probably didn't hear their inner thoughts. I want to continue living brightly and positively for my daughter's sake. How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.